Hello and welcome back to Talking Europe. It's one emergency that the EU didn't need. Already dealing with a war on its doorstep, an energy crisis and rising inflation, the handling of the Ocean Viking, a ship carrying migrants rescued in the Mediterranean, starkly showed the limits of European solidarity. And 7 years on from the migrant crisis of 2015, there's only a barely functioning system to share would-be asylum seekers across the EU. As for the situation in the Mediterranean, the European Commission says it's unsustainable and it's proposing a 20-point plan aimed at cutting down unsafe migration, creating guidelines for NGO boats rescuing migrants, and fostering European solidarity. Well, to look into those points, I'm joined by two MEPs, Juan Fernando López Aguilar, a Spanish MEP from the Socialists and Democrats. Welcome to you.
Pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thanks. And also joining me, Paolo Borchia, an Italian MEP from the Identity and Democracy Group.
Hello. Well, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Juan Fernando, I could start with you with something that you recently said about the situation in Italy, which is that if Italy violated international humanitarian law, then there should be legal action against Italy. Just elaborate a little bit on that for us.
Well, first of all, international law is a source of EU law. Besides, it's binding for the member states of the international community, including the member states of the European Union. So whether it's Italy, whether it's France, whether it's Spain, when there's a violation of international law, when it comes to obligations of search and rescue and safe disembarkment, there has to be consequences.
You're saying Italy did break the law as far as you're concerned?
Well, it's denial of safe disembarkment of search and rescue operations that have taken place close to the waters which are under the jurisdiction of the Italian Republic, which is a member state of the European Union. So it's not a choice. When there's a search and rescue operation, there are safe disembarkment obligations. Besides, there are also search and rescue operations when it comes to the maritime coast beside a state which belongs to the international community and abides by international law. I remind you that the obligations of search and rescue are a chapter of the Convention on Maritime Law, which was ratified in Montego Bay, Jamaica, 1982. It's binding international law and it's a source of EU law.
Paolo Borchia, is Italy in breach of its own obligations?
No, I don't think so. Well, my question is why always Italy? Because I think that we talk a lot about European solidarity, but well, just have a look to statistics. This year in Italy arrived around 90,000 people through the central Mediterranean route. And the matter is that, for example, France decided to welcome only 38 people. We are talking about 0.04%. And so, in my opinion, okay, I realize that it's very nice and it's very popular talking about humanitarian issues, solidarity, but figures are very clear, and it's clear that Dublin III regulation is not more working because it was approved in a different historical era, and now we need something different, starting from international cooperation and then continuing with European solidarity, because in this way it can't work.
So there is a new plan, at least being put forward, a new pact on migration and asylum, and one of the components of that potentially is a binding mechanism to redistribute migrants. I suppose you would be in favour of that if it actually could be made binding so that migrants are shared.
Well, there is no single reply. There are two aspects. If we talk about automatic relocation, I think that will give to Africa and to Asia a wrong messages. A wrong message. It means that it's like to tell them, okay, let's join Europe. There is an opportunity for everybody. But the reality is quite different. On the other hand, I think that without a binding mechanism, other member states of the European Union won't be helpful in trying to cooperate with relocation. And then I do understand that it's too easy arguing that okay, it's because of Hungary, it's because of Poland, but actually, frankly speaking, I don't see that among European governments there is a broad motivation in solving this problem.
A consensus. I mean, that's a fair point, isn't it? I mean, a mechanism like this, it's not going to be agreed by some countries in the EU, is it? A mechanism for redistributing people.
It has to be agreed, and you know what? You know why? Because once upon a time, migration and asylum issues were the competences of the member states in their sovereignty, but not any longer. Once the Lisbon Treaty entered into force, along with the Charter, there is a so-called space of liberty, justice and security, founded on the principles of solidarity and shared responsibility. And yes, it takes binding solidarity. Solidarity is not charity, it's not wishful thinking, it's not a good wish. It has to be a legal regime, so that solidarity is a founding pillar of the European Common Asylum System. So we have 5 regulations now underway. Yes, it is a principle and it's a must that we have to agree to binding solidarity mechanism in need of solidarity. And that is binding relocation programs for all the member states according to certain parameters which have to be agreed. That is the position of the majority of the European Parliament. And we are to engage, of course, in discussions with the member states in the Council in the so-called phase of trilogue. We're not there yet, but yes, the European Parliament have made up its mind that we need binding solidarity so that member states which are frontline in the Mediterranean, or is it the case of Spain, Mediterranean and the Atlantic, are not left on their own, are not left alone with the so-called problem of its burden, of its overload. No, it takes a shared responsibility through exactly binding solidarity implemented by relocation programs.
I hope that you agree that it's impossible to think to build up the future of the European Union based only on mass migration. Okay, I think that for sure we need to improve legal migration ways, but on the other hand, we should be able to develop a better way of international cooperation to development. Immigration and mass immigration is not the only way.
That actually fits in what we call holistic approach. External and internal dimension of migration and asylum issues are intertwined, are linked. First, we got to be better and do better when it comes to making the best of our effort in international cooperation for development and humanitarian aid. And people should know that European Union is actually the champion of the world in humanitarian aid, but we need to do better precisely to prevent the roots of the illicit trafficking of human beings and smugglers. But having said that, it also takes dismantling the business model of illicit trafficking of human beings and smugglers. It also takes solidarity, binding solidarity, once the human beings which are rescued in the seas, risking their lives, are saved, and safe disembarkment, and the safe disembarkment leads to relocation programs. And then inclusion and integration. The whole puzzle has to be unriddled, the whole puzzle had to be sorted out in a positive manner, and we have to change the negative look. Migration can be an asset for the European Union instead of
I think you probably would not agree with that last point.
Well, no, I think that we must be concrete, because from one side, I mentioned Italy case, for example. Around 90% of people asking for international protection are refused about their inquiry for being considered asylum seekers. 10% are considered like refugees, and so we are talking about migrants for economic reason, and migrants seeking for international
90%, according to Italian authorities, you're saying that their cases are judged to be economic migrants.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I think that on a humanitarian point of view, if there is someone escaping from a conflict, from a war situation, okay, I think that he must have the priority. And one more topic on cooperation. Okay, it's true. The European Union is the biggest donor at at the global level. The matter is that sometimes when we have a look to the projects funded by the European Commission, we see that maybe we are talking about money that could be invested in a more concrete way. Because sometimes I have the opportunity to have a look to some projects that are very strange on some points of view. We must be concrete. That's the message.
Well, first of all,
just final points, because we're running out of time.
It is a fact that most of the people, human beings who enter irregularly into European soil are not actual refugees. They are seeking for opportunities, which is not a capital sin, is it? So we shouldn't look to them negatively, as it was the final answer. Second, it is also a fact that 95% of those who are granted asylum or international protection in the European Union made it here irregularly in the first place. You know why? Because they were not given the chance to make it regularly. There are no legal pathways. We have to broaden and open up real legal pathways and make it possible for irregular migrants to become regular, so that they can have a chance to enter the territory of the European Union for working or opportunity purposes. If we incorporate, include, and make a positive assessment of the migrant opportunities, we can make an asset out of it, and we can make it in a positive way. The only way we do it is going European. It is not in the hands of the member states individually. We can provide a positive answer insofar as there's political will at the European scale, because it's a European scale of issue.
But okay, we can't promise to everybody that there will be opportunities for all migrants arriving from all over the world.
Okay, Paolo, we'll have to...
No one is saying that.
We'll have to stop there. I'm so sorry to stop you, but we have run out of time. But I'd like to thank my guests for this spirited debate, Juan Fernando López Aguilar and Paolo Borchia. That's all for this edition of Talking Europe. Thanks for watching.